Hey everyone, welcome back to the Product Pivot. My name is Santi. I'm here with my awesome co-host Megan. And to recap this podcast a little bit, we share real stories from real folks that have made the pivot into product management. And today we are very, very excited to be chatting with Nick. And I'm going to flip it over to him so he can give an introduction.
Folks, my name is Nikhil Punjabi. I'm a product manager. I have been sort of out of university for 8 years-ish now, but in product for almost 5.5. And it's been an absolute blast. Thank you so much for welcoming me, guys.
Awesome. We're so excited to have you on today. This is such a chill podcast. We're excited to kind of hear a little bit about your product story and how you made the pivot into product. So could you tell us a little bit about how you decided that product management was the path?
Yeah, great question. So a few years ago, I used to work for an organization called Innovacorp here in Halifax, Nova Scotia, which then became Invest Nova Scotia. And Innovacorp at the time still sort of is basically help support early stage tech companies. So in support in the sense wherein we would provide non-dilutive funding and programming to startups and founders so that they could work through their milestones and their MVPs. And also the organization will place these startups in incubation spaces of a variety of sectors. And we also had a venture capital arm. So pretty like end-to-end suite of services and even an investment arm that we provided. And I was on the programs team. So it was a very community development, business development, community engagement role wherein I got the pleasure and honor of interacting with so many awesome startup founders and in learning about their journeys as they get closer to MVP and beyond in their startups. And that really inspired me to get into product. I would say that's where really I started thinking about product as a role for myself. And I started, I guess, dotting the lines together. I guess a lot of PMs, when they think about product management and how they've come to it, they're able to bring a lot of transferable skills. And so transferable skills, I thought that could be reflective in product management are things like project management. And we could definitely go on a 3-hour hot debate of why till today, they're still not the same principle. They're not. But anyway, project management, stakeholder communication. And that role, in fact, really improved my stakeholder engagement. And in that role too, we used a few tools that really inspired me to get into product management. And it was so what I decided to do then is to better help startup founders. I said, how about I take a master's degree actually in tech entrepreneurship. So I while working full time started a master's degree in tech entrepreneurship and innovation because I told myself I want to learn about this entire process of prototyping, product development. How do you run a tech startup? And so I could be a better employee at Innovacorp. But what I also then would realize is that this actually taught me a lot about product management. And so one of the courses I actually took in that master's program was actually a design thinking. It was actually a design thinking class or two within an innovation management course. And it was incredible. And it sort of came to fruition where I applied for a product manager role because I've been talking to so many folks in the past, let's say, year and a half, founders, other folks in the community about product management. And what I really found infectious about it is the fact that you're able to be at the center of something that people want, working on a solution that actually delight users and change people's lives, as dramatic as that sounds. That really struck to me. And so I thought, okay, from a skill set standpoint, from an enjoyment standpoint, this looks like the right path for me. And I was very fortunate that December 2019 is when I started my role as a product manager at Result. And the rest is sort of history.
I love that.
That's amazing. One thing I just wanted to say really quick to the point where you're like, might sound dramatic about changing lives. I think it's actually so true, though. I think when people think about product management, they might see this kind of glamorous type of role. But at the end of the day, you are solving for real use cases in real life. So I can give a very good example of this. In my last company, we had a customer come up to one of our executives. They were doing a show or a trade show or something. They came up, they shook their hand and said, "Thank you, because your software saved my marriage." It was incredible to hear that because so for a little bit of context for the listeners, the product was for helping janitorial companies streamline their operations through software. So bringing in folks that quite literally were doing things on pen and paper. And a lot of these business owners, janitorial business owners, were very much in the weeds of their business while also working on their business. So for this particular customer, he bought the product that we sell, and he noticed a night and day situation. He, like he said, he quite literally thanked us for saving his marriage. His wife was with him. She was singing the praises of the platform. It was truly beautiful. So I just wanted to pull that out a little bit just for the folks listening in. Product management is, yes, it is a really cool role, lots of things that we do, but at the end of the day, we really do strive to solve real problems and drive real outcomes for people. Thank you for touching on that, Nist.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think that's really unique, honestly, because like so many product managers talk about like having user empathy and how important it is to talk to your users. And I think somebody had to have done that, right? To solve that problem for that product. And I think that that's just like a beautiful thing. Just wanted to call that out too. That's just such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I mean, we think about products across like health IT, which, by the way, I would say like for the past 5 years, a big surge in product management within that space too. Incredible, right? Like there are now apps in North America and across the org, even cool apps that are built right here in Atlantic Canada that are saving lives or vicariously or indirectly saving lives because they're in this space. They're sustainable and green tech startups that are trying to make the world quite literally a better place. There are technologies that are teaching folks to level up in AI, various industries or within deep tech itself. That's also changing lives. And so being a product manager, you get the honor, the onus of being at the center of that and having the responsibility to drive those outcomes and help impact people directly. So yeah, it spans across various industries. And it's
I think that's also this is just something that comes to my mind, the product manager role. Even, I know there are director level roles and like leadership level roles, but it's just generally like a flat role and like generally not this like leadership role, even though there's so much leadership involved in the product manager role. And just as something that comes to mind for me when you say that is that it's generally such a flat role, but it spans across the entire organization and can change lives. So I just think that that's just something that came to mind for me, that a lot of people look for leadership and look to grow in their careers. But as a product manager, you can really do it all.
And so you could do that internally as well. So a product manager also has the onus to evangelize and defend and envision their product internally as well. So you may be speaking to your sales colleague on why we need a next feature enhancement to be promoted pretty heavily in the next quarter, and you folks have to align on that. You hold the onus to share the vision with your sales team on that, which your engineers may push back on a feature that your customers are asking for. You have the onus of telling your engineers and convincing them as to why, rightfully so, for them to question why, it's going to cost a quarter's worth of work. And for new colleagues coming in, if you have junior PMs joining you and are looking to you for advice, or you have senior PMs joining you, looking at you for input, you also have the onus of sharing context as well. So you sort of become a superhero, sort of, dare I say, wearing a cape with a big P on your chest for product, being a product person internally and externally, wherein you have to evangelize. And I use that word a lot. You have to evangelize what you're working on, why it's important, where it could improve as well. And so you own the onus of not only output, but input as well. So you do have to detach your ego from the product. Because I've done this a lot. I've done this to the point where it's gotten to my psyche where I've owned my product as me. It definitely is a reflection and you should be proud of your work. But at times you should check your ego at the door because failure could get to your head and your emotions could as well. So what you want to do is detach yourself, but still be someone who fights for the product. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I want to pull on something you said earlier too around junior PMs and folks getting into this type of work. What about the folks that have yet to kind of start their journey and they're still in university and they're trying to figure out next steps? I know that you have a lot of really great thoughts and insights into this. So I wanted to kind of flip it over to you to dig into that a little bit.
Yeah, so for folks who are, let's say, pre-career, so it could be university or even not university, right? Folks who are in high school and they want to jumpstart their career, or folks who don't even go through any formal education and want to get into product. I would say start a business or dabble around. So starting a business is one of the best ways of learning about product management, hands down. Whether it's a lemonade stand as, because a lemonade stand, you may say, well, okay, that's not tech. Doesn't matter. It's a product. You're offering a product, or you are quite literally building a product, and your intention is to satisfy customers and make profit out of it or gain some traction. So what does that mean? It means, I need to think about which lemons to use. I need to think about which sugar to use. I need to think about where I'm going to set up my lemonade stand. I need to think about marketing. And so all the pieces come together. Okay, who's helping me with my lemonade? Is my sister helping me with my lemonade? Cool, sister's going to build the lemonade. That's my engineering team. All right, we got our engineering team set. Sister's going to help us with lemonade. Mom's going to help me with the signage. Dad's going to fight with vendor management to ensure I get a spot there on Saturday at the market. And cool, I've got a bunch of people around me. I've got a team. And now I have to focus on the product. So is the lemonade, how are we distinguishing my lemonade from Jerry's lemonade down the hall? I've got pink lemonade. Does Jerry have pink lemonade? I've got pink lemonade. So I have now differentiated myself from Jerry's lemonade by having a pink auction. And guess what? I'm gonna throw in a sales promotion. So now you start seeing all these components come together for a non-tech product as well, of how product management works, even in a startup lemonade stand, to even something like a tech startup, where obviously there's a lot of complexity around building a product, to even service. I would argue there is some quote unquote product management in a service-based business as well. You're offering something to end user. So if folks really want to get into product management and they actually have the fortunate exposure to it earlier, because a lot of product management exposure, at least in my experience, came post formal education. If they're watching films and they get inspired that, and they're like, okay, well, how do I get into this? It's really starting a business, starting a side hustle even, is where you start learning about the fundamentals of product management. It's cool. Like, we talk about a lot of these bigger companies and how they have more sophisticated product management principles. There's academia and other books out that speak about S&P 500 companies and top companies and how they've scaled products. That's all fun and all. That's definitely important information, but it could be as simple as starting a side hustle or business for you to get started and learning the principles.
I agree completely. So 2 things. 1, I want lemonade now. Really dig pink lemonade anyways. Great analogy. And for 2, again, I apologize, listeners. You hear me say it all the time, but I see just so many things as a product, right? You can look at almost anything in life and see it as like a product and apply some level of product thinking to it. So your example, spot on. It's something I've also said to folks come to me. If it's like a mentorship call, say, if you've got an idea of something, it can be anything. Try to make it come to reality in some way, shape, or form. If you're in a company and you're currently looking to pivot into product, use the thing that you're working on now. I don't care if you're a marketing, CS, whatever. Use the thing, apply product thinking to it. There's so many ways you can start to develop those skill sets that PMs use in their jobs. And love that you called out even just like non-tech, just everyday products. We still need them. I still need lemonade. It's a very real need.
And on that note, one of the basic principles of product management, and where I see a lot of pitfalls, especially in tech product management, is not being able to identify the needs of your end users. And that's extremely important. And it's something I've learned. I was very fortunate to learn that in school. Like I mentioned, the design thinking course is something I've used in reality now. Is what we did was we had to take cardboard, draw up a prototype on cardboard, and literally go to students on campus and ask, is this something you guys would like? I forget what the idea was, but it's basically in order for us to capture that feedback, so then we're building something folks want. You could obviously build something that creates a new market, like MySpace, or which evolved into Facebook, and now we have Instagram and other social platforms. I don't think anyone was sitting asking, I want to scroll on my phone for 3 hours today. That, it's a bad habit now. It's created a market, billions of dollars. I also scroll on my phone. I don't mean to scroll shame anyone. But my point is, you have that, but most product management comes from identifying a need, solving a problem for someone, and then working from there. And yes, 100% agree with you, Santi. That comes in organizations where if you're in a CS role, so you're in customer success and you want to understand, for example, how to best delight our customers who are just about to expire on their subscriptions, and they're actually canceled their billing. They don't want to renew with us. What could we do? I'm going to talk to the customer. And those right away are very transfer. Probably one of the, arguably from a customer discovery standpoint, one of the best roles to pivot from into product managers and CS, to be frank. There you go. You have like a basic fundamental. You have a customer who's dissatisfied. They're leaving. Why are they leaving? Okay, it's a competition. What does a competition have? And asking questions that don't impose solutions, which is a follow-up point. A lot of product managers, what they do is they build a plane when someone just wants a bicycle. They just want ding, 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 ding. I just want Jerry's lemonade. I want the pink lemonade. They just want to be able to use their bicycle and get lemonade. I didn't want it on a plane because a plane is not going to really take me to where I want. A plane is an over solution. A solution. I didn't need a plane. And so what happens is we've got these big fancy bells and whistles that get created where folks just wanted something simple. And then you could go from there. You've got a bicycle, you wanted another wheel, here's a tricycle, but you justify adding that other wheel with feedback.
I've experienced that. I've seriously seen that so much where it's like there's no validation before building the plane. Like validate your bicycle before you build the plane. Validate anyone wants to go anywhere. Do they even want to travel?
Yeah,
I feel like that's so true. I've seen that happen. So that's a great, great way of putting that. And Santi, like your face was like, heck yeah, I've seen that too.
Yeah, and I get it too from a perspective, right? Because at the end of the day, we really want to give our customers everything we can. But, the analogy that I like to use, again, from my last company, shout out, soundbite, but it's the whole build a cupcake before you make the wedding cake, like just see what's up. That, the ICP you're going after, you made a chocolate cupcake and they'd be like, I detest chocolate. Don't know why they'd say that, but maybe they do. And then you went and think to yourself, okay, great. I did not build this like 5-tier glamorous chocolate wedding cake. You save yourself some headaches in the long run from that. And again, to make your point, I love that you said, like, even validate if anyone wants cake. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Like, no, I'm good with banana bread. There's so many things. And I think that's the fun part about product, though, is you get to really explore these opportunities and see, like, actually what's going to have legs. What's actually going to be something our customers want, of course, but like need. What do they need? And you get to have some fun with it too. You can always make discovery a little bit fun. A challenge I put out to my team earlier today, I was like, what if we framed the question of like, here's a concept, instead of saying how do we validate it, how do we invalidate it? Different ways of thinking.
So that's the way of how are you able to, I got a question. How are you able to distinguish between what customers want and need?
For me personally, this is such a good question. I try my absolute hardest to strip it very much down to the not to use a buzzword, but the job to be done, but truly understanding what their job to be done is, and then the pain points they have in achieving that job to be done, or like getting that job to be done to be complete. That's where I kind of like to start, because if the job to be done is like users need to be able to do X, Y, Z, because the end result is what they take to their manager, to their customer, whatever it is. Okay, let's focus on that XYZ because that is the job to be done. We thoroughly understand it. If they're like, yeah, it'd also be great, like if, we could do this because there's like this other use case. Sure, that could be a future iteration. But in the terms of like what the need is, they need to do step 1, 2, 3. We need to help them do that as efficiently, smoothly as possible. And then we can iterate from there. That's just one of the ways that I look at it. Of course, every situation is going to have a little bit of nuance to it. Meg, I think you probably have some thoughts on this as well.
I would say you nailed it. I mean, the only addition I would add is like, are they trying to achieve an outcome or are they trying to make their lives easier? And I think that those two things they achieve different goals, right? Because usually making their lives easier is still a semi-outcome, but it's a different type of outcome. Generally, it's not going to necessarily keep them around. So those are the other two things that I would keep in mind when I'm looking at customer feedback. Do you have any feedback on that as well, Nick, that you'd like to share?
Yeah. For me, like need versus want is more so just like to Santi's point, understanding the root of a problem. When I try to build products, I think about, okay, the end user really needs the problem solved. And in those conversations, just like you, Santi, I think about, okay, like here's a scoped out solution. It's going to look like this. Is this what you want? I remember even asking my colleague on something I was working on, is this here's an idea. Here's 2 ideas. Which of the 2 would you want now? And is the other idea like something we could build post MVP? And she noted, yeah, 100%. Let's work on idea X, and if it makes sense, idea X could have idea Y as a feature post MVP. So I'm glad I then asked that question, because had I didn't, and I didn't get an answer, our team would have spent more effort on basically building something that would have been a want or a nice to have for MVP, but it wasn't a need or critical.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm like, yes, all of this, yes. Yeah. Because, and that's the thing, right? When it comes to like an MVP, it's really about kind of identifying what is the absolute bare minimum we can do to solve this problem, improve that's working. Because then we can iterate, then we can add things, we can keep going on feedback, all that fun stuff. I'm a huge fan of MVPs. If anyone wants to talk about them anytime, I'm all ears because I love hearing about them. I love discussing them, different angles on them. But yeah, you nailed it.
I love that conversation, though. I think it totally makes sense. I have the next question here. I feel like we hit this a little bit, but the next question we had here is just discussing if someone's coming from a totally unrelated role like banking or customer service and they want to pivot into product, how would you recommend they get started?
Yes. So in addition to starting a side hustle or a business, if you're in another discipline and you want to get into product management, basically I'll sort of jot down or I speak about my journey. A few things if I can remember from my Dome piece, this is 4 or 5 years ago. One thing was speaking to folks in product, talking to them, say, hey, if I wanted to learn about product, where do I go? So they would then say, here's some courses. So there are definitely a lot of courses now, especially now versus where it was 5 years ago. I think there was like a Udacity nano degree I was looking at, but now we have Udemy, we have lynda.com, which I don't know if lynda.com is still lynda.com anymore. So anyway, there was lynda.com, at least at my time. There is Udemy, there's Udacity. There are multiple micro-credentials you could look into. There's product faculty. There's BrainStation, if they're still kicking around. There's a lot of courses out there. And now, product management has gained a lot of sophistication, especially in the last decade. And especially in the last 5 years. So now if you want to get into AI product management, even as a junior, I would argue that's possible. You could start using AI tools and build something, or better collaborate with other folks like in engineering and design. And you could say, cool, like I'm going to get started by just using these tools. So I would say courses, definitely tools to check out where you could build stuff or you could iterate on stuff. Even product design would be really cool. Other things I would do is talk to startup founders, talk to business people, right? So the reason why I make that distinction is you could talk to folks who are starting to go from -1 to 0, or from 0 to 1, or 1 to 1,000. Just talk to people and get their experience on how they've built a product. And I want to distinguish that, this isn't just like generic business advice, because when you're going to a business person, speak about the product itself. If it's a lemonade stand, ask Jerry why his lemonade is kick-ass, right? So you want to be able to do that. Versus, if it's a really cool app that you're using and it's built here locally and, it's gained some traction, they've got a Series A, all right, you've got some progress. Speak to that founder on what led to their product success. What did they sort of run into? Because then that'll also arm you so that when you're into your product role, you're able to take those as learnings as well. And so I want to then clarify that talking to startup founders isn't just for you to be a startup founder or business person. It's actually for you to also learn the product itself. Obviously, this is very contextual. Every business is different, but what that does is gives you a very broad overview of how product works. Other things I did as well is, in my case, I took very formal education. I did a master's degree, and yes, apply to roles in product. Junior, if so, intermediate, if so, if it makes sense to. There's a lot of tangential roles in product, right? Some folks are solution specialists and they get into product. Some folks are business analysts and they get into product. Some folks are project managers and they get into product. Some folks are in CS or sales. And so that's where you have to use your transferable skills. So that's where you have to highlight your transferable skills. And it goes just beyond looking at the job posting. Don't look at just the job posting. Look at the job posting. Look at what else within that are tangential skill sets. So if, for example, the job posting says to engage with customers and you come from a background where you did that, highlight your accomplishments and how you were able to do that and display that. And so build a portfolio. So when I wanted to get into marketing, which is my career sort of went from banking to marketing to program management to product management. And so when I wanted to get into marketing, how I differentiated myself, I need to get back to it actually, is posting a lot of content on LinkedIn. And this is obviously no chat GPT or LLMs. This is me like actually doing research, writing stuff. I was just thinking about it today. I wrote an article on how the self-made person does not exist. And I actually like scoured the web to talk to research on Richard Branson and Oprah Winfrey and speaking about how they're self-made people. So similarly for product, if you want to demonstrate your product management skills, differentiate yourself, see if you could get a free website up that demonstrates on your resume about some cool stuff you tried out. Start writing content too around product management. And you know what? As a cool idea for people watching this, I challenge you. If you really want to get into product management, start a series today and say my journey to product management, where episode 1 is you watching this, and episode X being the last episode, is you getting an offer in product management or you starting a startup. Do that, document it, post it on LinkedIn or other channels, and folks will gravitate towards you. And that will differentiate you as well from the competition. So I've done this, or I've given this advice to folks for any career. It's like, if you're trying to go somewhere, document it. Because in order to get somewhere, you need to go somewhere. So if you need to go somewhere, why don't you document it? If you document it, then the universe will gravitate towards you.
That's good advice.
That's
really good
solid.
advice. Yeah. That's really good advice, because I feel like people, myself included, there's a fear of putting yourself out there. And I think that you have to overcome that barrier in this type of process of wanting to pivot into product management. You have to put yourself out there because a lot of other people are willing to. And so you have to be competitive if you're trying to pivot into a role like this that's already competitive. And so standing out, you have to find ways to do that. And that is a great way to do that. And I also heard you mention the idea of a portfolio. So someone who doesn't have that product background, what type of things would you recommend that they showcase in something like a portfolio?
Yeah. So for example, as a group, let's do a fun exercise. Let's name 3 different skills in product management. I'll go first. Customer discovery.
Communication.
Say there is a level of execution that needs
Okay,
to be
perfect.
played here.
So let's take those 3, slap it on a website in 3 different sections. It could be, here's who I am. And let's say for this person is in, let's choose a background, any background. I don't want to call it out because I'm going to call it an easy one. You guys choose a part.
Banking.
Perfect. So my name is Nikhil Punjabi. I'm in banking and exploring the world of product management. Here are 3 of the many skills that translate into product management. Communication, and then highlight how you've sort of communicated in your role in banking. And say, my client satisfaction survey score is 82%, whatever that looks like. And then start tying in things that are in product management. So, there's 3 new credit card offerings. Let's say you work for TD. There's 3 new credit card offerings. Cool. Helps evangelize new products by XYZ. And so it's not about, and you're not bullshitting, don't get me wrong. You're actually just changing the wording of what's used industry to industry. So in banking, there's client activations and there's renewals and there's upsells. And you do have some of that as well, but you have terms like collaborative with product marketing. You're obviously not going to say that. You don't want to lie. But what you want to do is something around collaborative with teams to ensure product success or something like that. So, okay, that's communication. What was our next one? A customer discovery. Cool. And always uphold communication in day-to-day banking, where I'd ask customers how else I could help them, and we help problem solve. Next one, so execution. Perfect. I could say I'm super efficient in all my tasks. I always focus on the vision of the goals of the department. And so here you're tying up a story. And so now you're not just a banking expert. You are now a banking expert who's exploring the world of product. And you're still in banking, but you're transitioning in product. And the way you're able to exemplify that is by telling a story. And you could even put a CTA at the end of it and say, what else is missing? If you were me and you want to get in product, what's missing here? And how can I prove to you that I'm ready for the world?
Yeah, you touched on something really important there too, that storytelling. It's crucial for PMs,
Yeah,
right?
storytelling is huge.
Yeah.
I think that's actually a key word. Like, if that's an acceptable buzzword, I think storytelling is very important. Because back to what we said about being the herald of your product, you have to storytell outside, inside, and you have to be able to take in stories and output stories as well.
Ooh, we got some good stuff going on here. Meg, I'll let you kind of take the floor for a minute there because I'm marinating in this. This is great.
That's so funny. Well, our next question is actually about what's something you wish more people understood about working in product in a software focused environment. So we're kind of pivoting over from this customer service banking focused over to a software focused environment.
Yeah. So definitely want to echo what I mentioned about just knowing your end user. Very important to do that. And not over solutioning as well. Definitely important. I mean, those are two of the things. Like, they go hand in hand, but those are two of the biggest things I've seen, even observed other startup founders do and sort of shoot themselves in the foot. I would say definitely market research, really important, whether, your format is in surveying or your format is in talking to customers directly, using your competitors. Use everything and anything possible to do that. Another thing I want to touch on, and actually is related to all kinds of topics, but AI. So if you're a product manager working in the software space, in any space really, but software space, and you haven't adopted AI in your day-to-day, you are behind. That sounds blunt. You challenge me, please challenge me, but I'm firm about it. You have to use AI in some way. And I'm not saying that just to be efficient in your day-to-day, but more so to be able to break down barriers between teams and be able to transcend product vision and work collaboratively and effectively. Use AI. And you know what? If you're in industry right now, or you're in a role wherein AI is not adopted and you want to differentiate yourself from your colleagues or the competitors in your space, speak to your senior leaders or your executive and say, here's an idea, folks. Are we working on this, or are we working on something similar? Could we move forward here? You would be surprised on how much adoption there has been. For those who haven't or think otherwise, you would be surprised of how many more companies are now adopting AI more than ever before in all kinds of use cases and applications. So as a product manager, no, you don't have to be in content to use AI only, and you don't have to be in dev only to use AI. You don't have to be in any sort of specialty or a designer to use AI. You could be in product and use AI as well. And so do it, like, definitely don't think it'll cost you your job. Yes, there's a ton of fair debate out there of how it is sort of compromising roles and putting folks at unease. But if you use it as a tool to empower you in your career rather than against you, it'll be helpful. So think of it as a weapon you want to sharpen and not be stabbed by.
It's good. I have a quick question just to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole here. There's some companies that actually don't allow their teams to use AI. AI is banned in the company. What advice would you have for those PMs or anyone in that company that do want to, get up to speed with AI, understand it better, use it, and get familiar with it? What would you recommend to those folks?
So there's two things of many things. Yeah, 100%. There are companies who are completely against AI. I think they have their other reasons. Perhaps it's the industry they're in. First thing I would do is challenge that. Obviously, do it nicely. Don't piss off your colleagues, but do it in a way where it's professional, diplomatic, collaborative, strategic, and you're able to prove that's beneficial. If you're in a sort of a gray space, or if you have very hard and fast rules, we can't use AI, and there's no discussion about it, perhaps your chances of convincing are less. But if you're in a gray space where it's like, we're sort of slowly adopting it, or we're kind of adopting it, or it's in a space where we're actually not adopting it because we're scared, that gives you an opportunity to then discuss with senior leaders and other folks across the organization as to why, build a use case, convince, and see if it gets approved. Now, let's say you're in a position where you can't use AI at all. Find the exact windows where you're able to use AI personally, but not compromise your role, not use any proprietary data, or basically mix personal and professional outputs. So for example, let's say the FBI doesn't want to use AI. We're not using AI at all, but a detective's like, I want to sharpen my AI skills. There's probably something the detective could learn using an AI tool about sharpening their own skill, but they can't use on the job. So think about those use cases where you're able to use AI for your own personal skill development, but not compromising company data, basically. And be honest with your team. Don't hide and then get in trouble and get your hand slapped. If you have to bend the rules, bend it, but don't break the rules, because it might cost you your job. And I know that's very tricky. Everything I just said is very tricky, and it's very use case driven, but I've seen those use cases myself.
It's really tough because AI really helps with productivity.
Yeah, exactly. So it is unfortunate when companies completely slam the door against AI. I think we may see, if we take a list of those companies, slap them on here and promise ourselves 5 years to revisit them, a portion of those companies may not even exist anymore. A portion of them would have adopted AI. A portion of them may have been acquired by companies who adopt AI. A portion of them may still be succeeding without AI. But I would be surprised to see companies who are in the last of the category.
Santi, do you want to ask the last question?
The last question we have for you, Nick, is if you could go back and give your younger self one tip about navigating a tech career, what would that tip be?
Yeah. This is really important for those out there who are listening to this podcast and they're just getting into their tech career or they're early in their tech career. Do not be afraid of trying new things. That's something that I thought I was really good at earlier in my career. And I always hesitated because frankly, sometimes maybe I was lazy. Maybe I thought it was too much work and I have other things to work on. But find avenues where you're able to try new things. Just getting off the topic of AI, try new tools, try new processes, try new tasks, try learning a new skill. Because in tech, yesterday was already old. Yesterday is outdated, especially how quickly technology is advancing. You need to be on your toes, learning. And so experiment and be ahead of the time. If you could be tomorrow's product manager today, you'd find yourself in a much better position. And not only but for yourself. And, we talk about how product management transcends into personal life. There's a lot that product management has helped me in my life. Like, I'm a dad now, and because of product management, I think I'm really good at time boxing life, being there for my son when he needs me, and just being a present parent. So try new things. Don't be afraid of failure. Fail fast. Mistakes are good. Don't make the same mistake too many times because you got to learn one day. And one thing that applies to product management that I learned really quickly is done is better than perfect. So I think I still sort of am, but very much so like a perfectionist earlier in my career where everything had to be perfect. And that hurt me because getting something done, and this ties back to, the needs and the MVP conversation. Done is way better than perfect because if your product is perfect out the gate, it probably means it sucks because perfect means it attempted to accommodate a lot of user requests and it's got bells and whistles. And again, it's an airplane where all we needed to get out the garage was Jerry's bicycle.
So true. I think that took a long time for me to learn because also perfectionism is just ingrained into my core.
Yeah.
It took a really long time for me to learn that it's okay to ship something that's not perfect.
Yeah. Yep. And I would say for folks that are early in their product career or pivoting into product, that pressure is tenfold. Because now that we've all been in the game for a while, we get it. We know a little bit more. We have a little more of that grace. We still struggle with it sometimes. I can be very much like that. But I noticed that I struggled the most with it early in my career. And I definitely over-engineered things that did not need to be over-engineered.
And it's very tough to fight against. It's hard to resist because depending on your upbringing too, you may have been in an environment where, perfectionism is actually only socially accepted. Anything else is rejected. So you may be in a scenario where you're like, no, this has to come out. And I think, I don't mean to go into philosophical discussion of formal education, but formal education actually goes against product management in that formal education is like, you get 100, you get an A, awesome. That means you're projected for success in formal academia. It just means that you have to pay another XYZ thousands of dollars in another institution to be tested on memory and application. But when you get into product management, if you have to demo something to a new enterprise customer and all they want you to do is show that something works, and you get into a demo and you've over-engineered it, you then would have wasted everyone's time. You went astray from product vision and you may have lost that customer. Whereas if you get into a demo, it's half working, preface it and say, you know what? You folks wanted this really quickly. We appreciate your time. It's important for us to work with a level of efficiency and we really want to ensure we're able to do business. So that being said, you may see a few things that are a little off, but I want to show a few core things that are working here. And I think that's most important to our discussion today. If you frame that, you already won half of the conversation. And that's where done is better than perfect.
Cool. I want to just give you space. If there's anything that we did not cover in your questions that you still want to talk about today, then please, the floor is yours.
No, I think you folks did a splendid job uncovering all the questions and more. Yeah, this is great. Really cool. Sort of talking to my inner child, to be honest. I wish I've seen this when I was like, if we were to build a time machine, I would give myself this entire conversation when I was 24, 25 years old, when I started getting interested in product management.
Yeah, I think her and I would say the same. Like, we definitely were hoping for resources like this. And I think learning from leaders in the space like yourself, I think that it's hard to have those conversations and feel confident to have those conversations one-on-one when you're early in your career. So having resources like this are super helpful. So we're really grateful for you and that you took the time to come on. But I have one last question.
Yes.
And it's a little zinger, so it's going to catch you off guard. What product metric should we stop pretending to care about?
Could I give you an answer that's not a definitive one? Because
Of course.
there's
Your question, your answer.
all right. The metric that we should stop caring about is really tough to say because every industry and every product is different. You have IoT let's say it's ocean tech and you have an IoT solution. Okay. The metrics that you need there so different from, let's say, a biomedical device. Okay. Still a product, different industry. And now you have, let's say, a travel app. Okay. So now you have a travel app, you have a deep sea IoT solution, and I have a biomedical device. All three of them are going to have different metrics. All right. So the biomedical device has to go through clinical trials. You cannot, that's like almost always, if I'm not wrong, like a must have. You can't skip on clinical trials. Whereas for your IoT device, it has to go through certain compliances because, you don't want the Coast Guard to take a look at this device and seize it, right? Versus if you're in a travel app, you want to be able to understand if you're looking at certain airfare metrics or partnership metrics that are important. I will say that it's really hard to land on a metric that is global. I think every product per industry and in its life stage will have different metrics to focus on. If anything, vanity metrics is something, and that's broad, right? Vanity metrics, folks get really caught up with vanity metrics, especially when they have to communicate to exec. Metrics, I've seen this in my experience where here's a bunch of, and I'm saying that because I've reported on vanity metrics and I shot myself in the foot for it, where it's like, look at this glowy, shiny thing. And we know, and I knew that it's probably not the best thing to report on, but I'm reporting on it. I had some other good stuff in my slide, but here's this one shiny thing. And it got questioned because it was a vanity metric. And so for those who are watching this and are new, vanity metrics are metrics, and this is not the real definition, this is my definition, are metrics that look good, but they don't mean shit. They're just there for display. Their role is ornamental and not fundamental.
And VCs pretend to care about them.
I'm not going to say anything because I used to work for a VC.
I can say it. It's okay. I'll send for us all.
He's adding in some spice today.
Yeah. Would you like some black pepper in your lemonade?
A little, and my pink lemonade.
There
Served
it
by
is.
Jerry. Well, cool. That was my last question. I'm trying to figure out what the product community thinks about our product metrics that are out there. So I was just a little curious. But Santi, anything else you want to add?
Nope, that was amazing. Thank you again for coming on to the show. I know our listeners are going to love all the insights here, and I think they're going to appreciate the banter and the questions. Thank you for asking us questions too, because oftentimes we're kind of up here, chilling, asking some folks some questions, and sometimes it's nice to have them come back our way. So this has been amazing, and again, just thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks a lot for having me. This was really fun.